The gunshot shattered the frozen silence of the Montana winter like a crack of thunder, sharp and deafening in the biting evening air. Naya dropped to her knees beside a solitary, frost-covered pine tree, the fringe of her traditional buckskin dress darkening with blood. Her hand pressed hard over her thigh, but the warm red vitality kept seeping through her fingers, staining the pristine white snow beneath her. The sky was turning a bruised purple and cold gray, the wind howling through the valley as if mourning the violence that had just occurred. She had been running for 3 days. 3 days of moving through biting blizzards, hiding in snowdrifts, and shivering in icy caves, ignoring the steady throb in her leg. Now her strength was almost gone. Each breath felt like swallowing broken glass. The wide-open land that usually sang to her spirit now felt cold and endless, a white tomb waiting to claim her. Her vision blurred as she leaned back against the rough bark of the pine. The wind tugged at her dark braids, blowing loose strands across her face. She tried to focus on the horizon. If she closed her eyes in this cold, she would never open them again. Then, the crunch of heavy hooves on snow broke the wind's song. Her heart kicked in fear. The sound grew louder, closer, a slow and steady rhythm. She tried to pull herself deeper into the shadows of the tree, but pain knifed through her leg, hot and blinding. A small, ragged gasp left her lips before she could stop it. "Easy now," a deep, soft voice called out. It wasn't the shout of a hunter, but the calm murmur of a man used to soothing startled horses. Naya tried to lift her weapon with shaking hands. "Stay back," she warned. Her voice was weak, the cold stealing her breath, but her eyes remained fierce. "I am armed." A tall rider reined in his sturdy bay, gelding a short distance away. He swung down from the saddle, his movements slow and deliberate, boots crunching into the deep snow. He didn't stride forward with arrogance. Instead, he stood near his horse, removing a thick glove to show empty hands. The brim of his hat hid most of his face, but she saw he wasn't wearing a badge or a soldier's coat. He wore a heavy sheepskin jacket and a simple scarf. He stepped a little closer, the last light of the winter day revealing a face reddened by the cold, with kind, shy eyes the color of moss. "My name is Bo," he said, his voice barely rising above the wind. "I run the ranch just south of here. I saw the tracks. I saw the blood." He stopped a few feet away and crouched down, giving her space, respecting the weapon in her hand. "I'm not going to hurt you, but the frost will take you if you stay here, ma'am. May I look at that leg?" Naya's fingers tightened around her gun, though her arm shook with the effort. "The men who did this," she whispered, her teeth chattering. "They are near." Bo gave a slow, somber nod, glancing at the darkening horizon. "Then we best move careful and quick. But first I need to know if you can ride. Will you let me help you?" She tried to stand, summoning the pride of her ancestors, but white-hot pain shot up her side and stole her breath. Her legs buckled. "It hurts too much to move," she gasped, squeezing her eyes shut against the agony. Bo's eyes softened, losing their shyness for a moment in the face of her suffering. He reached forward, his movements telegraphing his intent so as not to startle her, and gently moved her hand aside to see the wound. His touch was hesitant but careful. "That's why I'm here," he whispered, his voice low and grounding. "To make sure you don't have to face this pain alone." Something inside her cracked at his words. She had held herself together through gunfire, the massacre of her traveling companions, and 3 long nights of freezing isolation. But this simple, quiet kindness undid her. Tears slid down her cold cheeks, freezing almost instantly. She did not bother to wipe them away. Bo opened his canteen and poured a little water over the wound to clear the debris. Naya hissed as the cold hit, gripping the rough bark behind her. He used a clean handkerchief to bind the wound temporarily. "The bullet is deep," he said quietly, his gaze averting respectfully from her face to the injury. "I can't get it out here in the drift. My cabin is about an hour's ride. It'll be rough going through the snow, but I'll be as gentle as I can." Naya stared at him, breathing hard, vapor pluming from her lips. I do not have much choice, do I? There are always choices, Bo answered, standing up and brushing snow from his knees. Sometimes none of them are easy, that's all. A weak, ironic smile tugged at her lips. You have a strange way with words, rancher. Bo, he corrected gently. Out here, titles don't keep you warm. He slid one arm beneath her knees and one around her back, lifting her as if she weighed no more than a snowflake. She let out a small groan as her leg shifted, but his hold was firm and steady. Her head fell against his sheepskin coat, and she could hear the slow, steady beat of his heart. The ride to his cabin blurred together in a haze of pain and falling snow. Sometimes the world was just the swirling white flakes above them. Sometimes it was just the steady trudging of the horse and Bo's voice. He spoke to her and to the horse, saying simple things to keep her awake. Easy, boy. Watch that ice. Stay with me, Naya. Just a little more. His words were like a rope she clung to in a blizzard. The cabin rose out of the dark at last. A sturdy shape of logs with snow piled high on the roof, warm orange light glowing through the small frosted windows. It looked to Naya like a spirit lodge, a safe harbor in a frozen sea that had tried to drown her. Bo carried her inside and laid her carefully on a narrow bed covered with a thick quilt that smelled of cedar and wood smoke. He lit more lamps, pushing back the shadows. I need to get that bullet out now, he said, shedding his heavy coat. He looked nervous now, his hands wringing together for a second before he steeled himself. I won't lie. It is going to hurt badly. Naya swallowed hard, gripping the quilt. Do what you must. Bo moved with quick, sure hands, shedding his shyness when the work needed doing. He gathered a bottle of whiskey, clean cloths, a knife he heated in the lamp flame, and a pair of long tweezers. The sight of the metal made her stomach twist. He handed her the whiskey. Drink. It won't take all the pain, but it might dull the edges. She took burning swallows until the room tilted and she pushed the bottle away. Bo folded a thick leather strap and placed it between her teeth. Bite down on this, he said gently. And if you need to scream, you go ahead. The snow swallows all sound out here. Then the real pain began. Fire tore through her leg as he cut and searched for the bullet. She bit the leather so hard her jaw throbbed, tears spilling from the corners of her eyes and running into her hair. Bo did not stop, though sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands stayed steady as stone, his face lined with intense focus. Almost there, he murmured once, his voice the only calm thing in the room. When the bullet finally came free with a wet sound, the edges of her world went dark. She floated for a moment in that darkness, somewhere between waking and sleep, and then his voice reached her again. You are doing fine, he said softly. The worst is over. Just need to clean and stitch. Dawn was only a pale blue line at the frosted window when he finished. Naya lay flat on her back, sweat cooling on her skin, too tired to even lift her hand. The pain was still there, but it was duller now, deep and heavy instead of sharp and wild. Bo washed his bloody hands in a basin, his broad shoulders bowed with weariness. Naya watched him through heavy eyes. Why are you helping me? She whispered. You do not know who I am. I could be bringing a war to your door. He looked at her, really looked at her, his moss-green eyes searching her face with a mixture of curiosity and sadness. Are you? No, she said. But the men chasing me are cruel. They are wolves. By helping me, you have made yourself prey. Bo dried his hands and pulled a wooden chair to her bedside. In the growing morning light, she saw the fatigue in his slump, the solitude that seemed to cling to him. I've been prey before, he said quietly. Tell me why those men want you dead, and then I'll decide if it's worth the trouble. Naya stared up at the wooden ceiling beams for a long moment, gathering strength. Her throat felt dry, but she forced the words out. I was traveling on the stagecoach from the reservation agency, she said. I was going to meet my brother in the north. There were 3 other passengers, a merchant and his wife, and a young boy. The merchant carried a lockbox. Gold, I think. Papers for land. Bo sat still, hands folded, listening intently. We were caught in the first storm near the pass when they rode out of the tree-line, she continued. 5 men. Their leader was a man with a scar across his nose. They called him Graves. He ordered the driver to stop. They shot the driver and the guard before anyone could speak. Her voice shook with the memory. They did not even give them a chance. I was wrapped in a blanket on the floorboards, hidden. Her fingers clenched the quilt. I heard everything. Graves laughed when he shot the merchant. Then his wife. Then the boy. Just like that. He wanted the box, and once he had it, he did not care who lived. He enjoyed it. Beau's jaw tightened, his shy demeanor evaporating into something harder, colder. They started searching the bodies, Naya whispered. I panicked. I ran into the snow. One of them saw me. He shot me as I reached the trees. I do not even know how I kept running. I just knew I could not fall where they could reach me. She went quiet, the memory pressing down like a weight. You shouldn't blame yourself for running, Beau said firmly. If you had stayed, you would be dead too. How long have you been alone out there? 3 days, she answered. I moved when the snow stopped, hid when it fell. I thought I had lost them, but yesterday evening I saw their tracks again. I knew they were still hunting me. A witness is dangerous to men like that. She lifted her eyes to his. I understand if you want me gone when I can walk. This is not your fight, Beau. Beau stood and walked to the small window, staring out at the rising sun reflecting off the blinding white snow. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and rough. My sister and her husband were killed on a homestead raid 5 years ago, he said. I wasn't there. I was hiding in the barn. A coward, too scared to move. I heard it all. He turned back to her, his face shadowed, eyes burning with old pain. So you see, Naya, this is very much my fight. I won't run this time. The days that followed moved in a slow, quiet rhythm, dictated by the winter storms outside. Naya healed in Beau's small cabin while the snow piled high against the logs. Her leg hurt, but the wound stayed clean under his careful hands. He changed the bandages each day, his touch gentle even when the pain made her breath hitch. He cooked simple meals, venison stew and corn cakes, and made sure she ate. When she was strong enough to sit up for longer, he taught her how to play cards, though he blushed whenever she teased him about his poor poker face. He read to her from the few books he owned, his deep voice filling the cabin with stories of cities and oceans neither of them had ever seen. In turn, she told him about her people, about the traditions of the Apache, and how the land spoke if one knew how to listen. You live alone here? She asked one evening as they sat by the roaring fire. Yes, he said, staring into the flames. Animals make better company than most men. They don't lie. You are lonely, she observed, not as a question but a fact. Beau gave a small, sad smile. Loneliness is safe. It's quiet. Quiet can be heavy, she said softly. Like deep snow. Maybe, he agreed, but it doesn't shoot back. Her leg grew stronger. The sharp pain faded to a steady ache. Beau began talking more about Graves and his gang. A plan formed between them. What will you do? Naya asked. About Graves. What I should have done 5 years ago, Beau said. Stop them. But I'm just a rancher. I can shoot, but I'm no lawman. You have a heart, she said. That is more than they have. I have a friend, Beau said suddenly. A U.S. Marshal. Tate. He operates out of the town in the valley. If I can get word to him, I can help, Naya said. No, Beau shook his head. You are safe here. I am the only one who knows their faces, she argued. Before they could argue further, the sound of horses outside made them both freeze. Beau snatched his rifle from above the mantel. Naya grabbed the small derringer he had given her for protection. Stay down, Beau commanded, moving to the window. He peered through the frost. 3 riders. It's Tate. He let out a breath of relief and opened the door. A tall man in a heavy duster coat stepped in, shaking snow from his hat. Beau, he said, his voice gravelly. I got your message, though I nearly froze to death getting here. Message? Naya looked at Beau in surprise. Sent a ranch hand out the morning after I found you, Bo admitted sheepishly. Didn't want to worry you until I knew Tate was coming. Marshal Tate looked at Naya, taking in her attire and the bandaged leg. This the witness. Naya, Bo said. This is Marshal Tate. He's the only law I trust. Tate tipped his hat.
Mom.
Good to see you breathing. Graves is a nasty piece of work. We've been tracking him for months. Found his camp about 10 miles north, tucked in the old mining caves. 10 miles.
Bues faz paled.
That's too close. We ride at dawn, Tate said. I have 2 deputies waiting in the canyon. I am coming with you, Naya said, her voice hard. Absolutely not, Bo said. You are still healing. I can shoot, she said, standing up. She winced but held her ground. And I know how they move. They are tracking me. If I am with you, I can draw them out. Tate eyed her with respect. She has a point, Bo. We need bait. She is not bait, Bo snapped, his shyness gone, replaced by a fierce protectiveness. She is a person. A person who wants justice, Naya said, stepping close to him. She looked up into his eyes. Keeping me here will not change the past, Bo. And it will not keep me safe forever. Graves will not stop looking. The cabin went quiet, the fire crackling softly. I have grown rather fond of having you here, he admitted at last, his voice rough. And I have grown rather fond of being here, she said. But this is not finished. Let me help end it. He searched her face, then gave a slow, defeated nod. All right, but you stay behind me. Promise. I promise, she lied. The next morning was brutal and cold, ice coating the trees like glass. Naya dressed in heavy trousers under her buckskin dress and the wool coat Bo lent her. By midday, they met the deputies and rode toward the mining caves. The plan was simple. Tate and the deputies would circle the back. Bo and Naya would approach from the ridge using the high ground. They waited in the snow, breaths misting in the air. Are you afraid? She asked. Yes, Bo answered honestly. Not of dying, of failing you. She took his gloved hand. I am afraid too, but I am ready. A whistle signaled Tate was in position. Gunfire erupted seconds later. The canyon echoed with the cracks of rifles. Bo fired, his aim true, dropping a man running for the horses. Naya watched the chaos, her heart pounding. Then she saw him.
Graves.
He wasn't in the camp. He was climbing the rocks behind them, a pistol in his hand, eyes fixed on Bo's back. Bo! She screamed. Her warning came a heartbeat too late.
Graves fired.
Bo jerked as the bullet slammed into his shoulder, spinning him around. He fell hard into the snow, his rifle sliding away. Blood bloomed red on his sheepskin coat. Graves scrambled over the ridge, grinning like a demon. Well, look at this, Graves sneered. The little Apache bird found herself a protector. Bo groaned, trying to reach for his fallen gun. But his arm wouldn't cooperate. Graves aimed his pistol at Bo's head. Good night, rancher. Naya stepped out from behind the boulder, the small derringer steady in her hand.
Graves.
The outlaw turned, surprised. There you are. Drop the gun, she ordered.
Graves laughed.
That toy? You think that can stop me? I will put a bullet in your heart, she said. He sneered and began to turn his gun toward her. It was the distraction Bo needed. With a roar of effort, the shy rancher surged up from the snow and slammed into Graves' legs. Both men crashed backward, rolling dangerously close to the cliff edge.
Go!
Naya screamed, rushing forward. Graves slashed with a knife he pulled from his boot, cutting Bo's arm, but Bo held on with a desperate strength. They rolled again, snow flying. Naya saw her opening. She lunged, not firing, but slamming the butt of the pistol into Graves' temple as he tried to stab Bo. The outlaw went limp. Bo shoved the unconscious man away and collapsed back onto the snow, gasping for air. Naya dropped to her knees beside him. Bo, she whispered, hands hovering over his bleeding shoulder. Stay with me. I'm here, he wheezed, looking up at her with a pain-filled smile.
I'm
Still here. Tate and the deputies arrived moments later, securing Graves. They helped lift Bo onto a horse. The ride back to the ranch was long and agonizing, but Naya never left his side. Back at the cabin, it was Naya's turn to play the healer. She cut away his coat, cleaned the wound, and stitched the flesh as he had done for her. She sat by his bedside through the fever that followed, cooling his forehead with snow-packed cloths. "You cannot leave me, Bo," she whispered one night when his fever was high. "You said we would have peace. You cannot break your word." At dawn, his eyes fluttered open. "Naya," he rasped. "I am here," she said, tears of relief spilling over. "It hurts," he groaned. She pressed his hand to her cheek. "That's why I'm here, Bo. To make sure you don't face the pain alone." He squeezed her hand weakly. "Stealing my lines now?" Weeks passed. The winter began to break, the snow melting into rushing creeks. Bo healed, though his shoulder would always be stiff. One morning, as Naya was packing her meager belongings, Bo stood in the doorway. "Where are you going?" he asked, panic flaring in his eyes. "The snow is melting," she said. "I assumed you would want your quiet back." Bo crossed the room in 2 strides. "I don't want quiet. Not anymore. It's too loud without you." Naya looked up at him. "People will talk. An Apache woman and a white rancher." "Let them talk," Bo said, his voice firm. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple silver band. "My mother's ring. I never thought I'd have a reason to take it out of the box. But then you came along, brave, stubborn, and beautiful." He took a breath, his shyness returning for just a moment. "Naya, I love you. Will you stay? Will you marry me?" Tears filled her dark eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you, shy rancher." He laughed, a true, bright sound, and kissed her. Spring came to Montana in a rush of green grass and wildflowers. They married in the small-town church, ignoring the whispers until the whispers turned to respect for the couple that had brought down the Graves gang. One warm evening in late summer, they sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sun set over the mountains. Bo took her hand. "Tate wrote today," Bo said. "Graves was sentenced. It's finally over." "Good," she said, resting her head on his shoulder. "He offered me a job," Bo said. "Deputy. And I turned him down," Bo said, brushing a kiss against her hair. "I have everything I need right here. Husband to you. Father. Maybe someday." Naya's heart thumped. She lifted his hand and placed it gently over her stomach. "Then I have news that might please you." Bo froze, his eyes widening. "Naya, are you?" "The winter was long," she teased gently, "and the spring brings new life. We are having a baby." Bo let out a shout of joy that echoed across the valley. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her neck. "A baby," he breathed. "Our family." "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me." "We saved each other, Naya," he said, holding her tight. As the last light faded and the mountains turned purple in the distance, they stood together on the porch of their home, knowing that the hardest road in their lives had led them to each other, and that sometimes the words, "it hurts too much," lead to the kind of love that lasts.